Well, good morning, everybody. It is March 21st, and I am in Death Valley. I'm below sea level somewhere right now, or I think at least. But anyways, I came here to go check out the super bloom, but I booked my reservations and everything well before I knew there'd be the most intense, crazy heat wave for this time of year anywhere in America's history. Or at least that's what it's shaping up to be. It's really quite something spectacular. But I actually was surprised to see that these delicate wildflowers that they eke out their living by growing only when conditions are nice in Death Valley, which is a pretty limited window, are actually doing fairly well still. There's a lot more to see and there's likely better places, but this is sort of what the aftermath of a super bloom looks like, as they call it. See, there's lots of vegetation out here. These hillsides in a poor bloom year would be completely dirt colored, but you can see the spent wildflowers that are just starting to die back to the earth. But we can still identify a few species. Chief among them out here is this guy. This is Geraea canescens. I think it's commonly called desert sunflower. It's a very apt name because it's clearly related to other sunflowers. And the Helianthioideae tribe. That's is the third largest tribe in the aster family, and it's got its peak in diversity in the western United States. And it's a very classic super bloom species, especially at the very lower elevations. Here's another specimen. We're doing quite well. It's been over 100 degrees for the past few days, but they've not died yet. Now, I'll talk about the science of super blooms later, but let's just see what else we can find here. Now, a super bloom is actually a pretty unscientific term. It's not a term scientists like very much because it doesn't really describe anything aside from something being a really good bloom year, but that's very hard to calibrate and quantify. I mean, obviously you can just count wildflowers off, but what really makes a super bloom? Well, the factors that really go into making it are a few-fold. You first need lots of rain, of course, because the plants here are growing in areas so dry that rainfall isn't even seasonal anymore. It's really like a variation of between the years, which can be completely random. So a lot of plants here have evolved to be annuals and produce seeds that will only germinate when conditions are very right. So one of the first things they need is, of course, lots of rainfall. So they're essentially basically only living life when conditions are not the typical desert ones we get out here, because Death Valley typically only gets about 2 inches of rainfall a year now. That's the worst parts of Death Valley and the whole Mojave Desert, but the rest of it isn't that much great either. Like, rainfall probably averages around 6 or less inches for most of the Mojave Desert. So plants here need a lot of rain, but it can't just fall any time of year. If it falls in the summer, like in some storm, it'll just be evaporated and it won't go anywhere. If it actually falls in the springtime, it's a little too late for them to grow. So what they like is heavy rainfall in the autumn, starting in October, going through November and December, and continued rainfall for January, February into March can lead to good peak bloom conditions around this time of year. Of course, they don't like sudden heat waves like we're dealing with right now either, because that means they can't tolerate the heat very well. They're meant to just live in, like I said, these nice climactic moments throughout the several years in the interannual cycles of the desert. So when it gets really bad out here, they can die really quickly. But we're going to try and finish up and set seed at least, so they don't completely waste their one chance at life, because most of these, as I said before, are annuals. In fact, pretty much all of them are annuals. I don't know what plant this is. This looks very interesting, though. It might be like a Boraginaceous? I'm not very prepared either. I'm a little bit embarrassed by that, but I'm going to figure all this out later, at least. And they also don't like wind very much, because wind can dry out the plants, and many of them are rather delicate and can be knocked over by the wind. But conditions this year were very good, perhaps the best since the year 2016, which is a very amazing bloom year. Now this little guy, which is a member of Boraginaceae, is, I believe, demissa. It's got these nice pink flowers. There's lots of pinks, purples, and yellows out here. Both seem to be the main colors. Like a little mat-like plant. It's obviously doing very well here. Come back a week from now, it might be completely wrapped up, but for now, it's living life. You can see other specimens of it all throughout here. How cool. Another plant I'm seeing of some relative abundance out here is this guy. This is a species of Chaenactis, common to dusty maidens. I think it's Chaenactis carphoclinia or something like that. carphoclinia. It's the most common Chaenactis out here, it would seem. Oh, you can see its leaves are really suffering out in this heat. But the flowers, at least some of them, are still doing all right. Now here is some species of Phacelia I'm pretty sure I won't be able to identify. I can give it a try. There's a few species of Phacelia you see in the valley referred to super blooms. You can tell by their purple flowers, and it just kind of looks boraginaceous. You know, it's got boraginaceous leaves and hairs on it. I wish I could explain it better, but I'm not doing so good at that. I'm not sure what these little scrubby things are. Might be more Phacelias, but it would be a lot easier to tell what they were had the bloom not wrapped up yet, but that seems to be the situation we are in right now. And look on the watch, you can see there's some especially tall Geraea canescens, which makes sense because these areas are going to have a higher abundance and availability of water for those brief moments in the year when there's major floods. Like this one's probably almost a little over 3 feet tall actually, which is pretty decent for out here. Another plant I'm seeing fairly frequently out here is this guy. This is Psathyrotes ramosissima, member of Asteraceae. You can sort of tell this is almost Chaenactis-like because it doesn't have any ray florets or ligules, or what you want to call them. I think there's actually a difference between the two. Rather, like ligules are almost like a type of ray floret. But point is, I'm seeing it and it's doing pretty well. It's got these leaves that almost look white here. But that's because they have these fine hairs, and a lot of desert plants have these as a way to reflect light and reduce the heat they experience. This plant I think actually can be a perennial, though it's often an annual still. Very interesting. And I don't know for sure, but I don't think this is Anulocalus annulatus, but it looks very interesting. I want to figure out what this is too. This looks like a weirdly large Atrichoseris platyphyllus, which, oh, speaking of which, you know what, that might be it. It might have just been nibbled on by like a rabbit or something, but because this is a larger, or a smaller, when I think of the same specimens, but it is definitely Atrichoseris platyphyllus. So each of these videos are going to be talking about a lot of the same plants, which if you don't like that, I'm kind of sorry, it's just how it's going to be. It's commonly known as gravel ghost, like it's sort of a ghost on these gravels. This one's got its leaves mostly wrapped up for the year. Very neat. Okay, I might be heading on to a new place to see other plants that are not blooming anymore. Except for, actually there's quite a lot still blooming, but yeah, this is tough times for the plants here. This is a really unprecedented heat wave though. I guess it could have always happened, but maybe climate change is making it worse. I wouldn't be surprised at all. Oh, it's partly cloudy today. That's actually kind of a relief to get slightly nicer. Now just overlooking the very bottom of Badwater Basin here, you can see another area that is very much post-super bloom. A lot of the Chaenactis, Flocculinia or Flocculina, carphoclinia I think, I can't remember what it's called, but I should really try. I'm not that familiar with a lot of the plants here, so I'm really learning a whole lot, but also maybe occasionally getting some things wrong or just not exactly knowing in the moment. But you can really see just how amazing this place would look like maybe just just 1 week ago actually. Of course, those rocks up there are pretty much completely barren, so even in a good year I doubt they'd be in bloom or alive with wildflowers. I'm also seeing some Phacelias, but I'm not sure which species. I was kind of hoping I'd see more Abronia villosa. That was a purple wildflower I'd hope I'd see more of, but nope. It's mostly been Phacelias so far, but I've only got a little bit of park done at this point. Little young, tiny Geraea canescens. That one's like a little larger than my finger, it would seem. See, And I can still see Telescope Peak up there. It's got a lot of snow on it. We'll probably still have some snow, at least until mid-April, even with this heat. But I think normally it lasts until May. So it's not that encouraging. But yeah, you can basically, I wonder what the wildflower blooms look like at the higher elevations. That'd be interesting to see. And I know I got some cool stuff, like even in September when I was here 3.5 years ago, I was really happy with what I saw. Okay, after careful review, I figured out this is probably Phacelia calthifolia, the Calthaleaf Phacelia, because the other one that looks like this, that's common, has compound leaves. Also got that little guy over there. That is Monoptilon bellioides, or Mojave Desert Sta. So I think that's a common name. The common names can vary a lot. That's why they're not really formalized, but look how tiny it is. It's like, here. Dang, here's some sirens. I hope someone's alright, or everyone's alright. Ooh, there's more over there. So when a super bloom is over, what exactly happens to the plants? Well, at the very early stages, as I might have mentioned, the plants begin to set seed and develop their fruit and get ready for the next time there'll be a super bloom, or I should say conditions that would lend themselves to a super bloom. And after that, because most of these, pretty much all these plants actually are annuals, what's going to happen is the above ground portion is going to die, as well as the roots. It's probably going to break off and get blown away by the wind, and basically just get tumbled to pieces, so that by the time you come here next year, there'll be almost no skeleton, so to speak, from the last year's bloom. Of course, nothing in nature is wasted, so eventually those pieces are going to be eaten by various insects. I mean, as the plants are dying, it's happening already. Not that I was trying to show that there, just trying to show some of the dead plant material. But even after death, there'll probably be some insects that are detritivores. Maybe some rodents will pick at them. And whatever they don't get will likely eventually become food for bacteria and fungi in wetter years. It's just a circle of life, basically. Stuff doesn't just accumulate endlessly forever. Well, sometimes it sort of seems like it does. There's almost always organisms working at everything and trying to make a living, even on the dead bodies of other organisms. I hope you guys know the basics of decomposers and detritivores and scavengers, but you never know sometimes. Well, thanks for watching, and see you next time.